Shach, he wasn't, apparently it was not always so, but he became an arch-conservative. And he became the head and the undisputed leader of the Thai world at that time. We're talking about the 70s and 80s. That's what I recall. His name was the name on the Haredi's lips the whole time. Even the Sfaradim who wanted to study Torah seriously at that time were studying, learned Yiddish and went to study in Ponovitch, for example, and they were coming from Rav Shach, not Rabbi Yosef. It was, in fact, Rav Shach really established Rabbi Yosef, put him into business, because he gave the green light for the Shas party to get off the ground.
For Rav Ovadiah's party.
Yeah, but initially he was in charge. He was the influential voice of Shach.
That actually Rav Shach founded Shas, essentially.
Basically, that's the truth. Exactly so. He founded Shas. You see, Rav Shach didn't like the Hasidim, the way they were running Agudat Yisrael, and that's why he decided to break away also and set up the Gila Torah. And his complaints against the Hasidim, that the Hasidim were the majority in Agudat Yisrael, the Moetzet HaChachamim or whatever, and they tended to care more about their institutions, which I suppose you can understand, than the Ta'i ones, and he didn't like that. And the same was true of the Sfaradim. They weren't getting a fair deal. I think that's factually true. So it was based on certainly a perception of, and I think it's probably a factually based perception of what's the word? Discrimination against the Sfaradim and also against the Ta'im. Different but similar complaints. So they both broke away. So Rav Shach, I believe technically he did set up Shas, so he certainly was one of the driving forces behind it. It was only then later that Rav Yosef was really initially. I remember a time in the 80s that Rav Yosef actually went to the home of Rav Shach to speak to him, and basically was told off by Rav Shach for doing this or saying that or whatever it was. But Rav Yosef initially was somewhat subservient to Rav Shach. He did not want to engage in a war with him. And what happened at that time, I think, is that slowly he built himself up as a political figure, but also what happened at the same time was that Rav Shach simply, his health began to fail, and mentally he was no longer there either. So that became a non-issue. That's what I recall.
Of course, what's interesting as well is the Rav Ovadiah's halachic approach.
Well, obviously, it's totally different.
It's totally different. Much more mekil than Rav Shach's approach.
Sometimes yes, and other times perhaps even no. But Rav Shach would be the first person to tell you, I'm not a posek. I've seen this in writing. He wrote, I'm not a posek halachot. So, wasn't it just they had really great halachic disagreements? Different approaches on many things, yes, but not really halachic disagreements.
Well, but Rav Ovadiah Yosef. So Rav Ovadiah Yosef was much more in the direction of not going by all the latest chumrot, but going by the basic Shulchan Aruch, being more mekil where possible.
Yes, but this was not Ashkenazi Sephardi divide. This was that same discussion existed within the Sephardi world. Right? Other Sephardi, many, not all, many other Sephardi Rabbanim had a different approach, and Rav Yosef was able to steamroll most of them, and most of the Tzibur Sephardi were eventually either willingly or had to be cajoled, but they accepted this. What's the word?
Accepted his
hegemony. The
hegemony, right?
Of Yosef in the third year. Well, that largely became the case. There were, of course, holdouts who didn't accept that, and who liked Mordechai Eliel, for example, mainly because he represented the more Kabbalah-based system, which was based on the Ben Ish Chai. So people who were into Ben Ish Chai would go with Mordechai Eliel. So it's all about following this or that school, follow certain traditions. You understand? It's a different world, obviously, from the Shach world. And that wasn't, these things were not found on the agenda. He barely knew who the Ben Ish Chai was, I think. I mean, he heard of him, but I doubt that he spent more than a few minutes even looking at his books.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the Rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the Rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.